Hi, I'm Olivia Martinez. I'm 28, living in San Francisco, and working as a software engineer. Calling it my best life might be a bit of a stretch, but hey, I'm managing. My apartment's got a view of the fog, and I can afford the occasional overpriced avocado toast. So there's that. But trust me, getting here wasn't exactly smooth sailing. Picture this. I'm 8 years old, rocking pigtails, when my dad, Michael, decides family life isn't his scene anymore. He packs up and takes off with a woman young enough to be his daughter. "Sweetie, I'll always love you, but I need to find myself," he said. "Yeah, sure, Dad, find yourself in someone else's arms." Fast forward 4 years, and it's my mom's turn. Sarah meets Mr. Moneybags and suddenly craves a fresh start. "Olivia, darling, you'll understand when you're older. This is for the best," she said, kissing me goodbye. The best for who, exactly? Thankfully, Grandma Elena stepped in, no questions asked. "Olivia, my sweet girl, we'll get through this together," she'd say, wrapping me in those warm, cinnamon-scented hugs that felt like home. Don't get me wrong, I'm doing okay. I've got a great job at Tech Corp, where I met my best friend Zoe. She was the one who finally convinced me to try therapy. "Girl, you've got more baggage than an airport carousel." "Time to unpack that," she said over our third glass of wine one night. So there I was, pouring my heart out to Dr. Patterson every Tuesday. "Olivia, how does your parents' abandonment make you feel?" He'd ask. "How do you think it makes me feel, Doc?" Like I just won America's Next Top Abandonment Story. Just when I thought I was getting a grip, life threw another curveball. Grandma Elena, the only real parent I ever had, passed away. I was crushed, drowning in grief and memories of cinnamon hugs. Then came the surprise. She'd left me a fortune, serious money, the kind that would make even a Silicon Valley CEO do a double take. And wouldn't you know it, suddenly my phone was buzzing with calls from two people I never thought I'd hear from again. "Olivia, sweetheart, it's your father. I heard about Elena. I think it's time we reconnected." "Darling, it's your mother. I'm so sorry about your grandmother. We should talk." Well, look who decided to crawl out of the woodwork. I guess a fat inheritance check was enough to jog their memories about having a daughter. Buckle up, folks, things were about to get interesting. So there I was, standing outside a fancy restaurant, questioning my sanity for agreeing to meet with Michael. Yeah, I'm calling him Michael now. Dad is a title you earn, and this guy cashed in his chips a long time ago. "Olivia, oh sweetheart, you look so grown up," he said, walking toward me with a woman who looked like a Desperate Housewives extra on his arm and two mini Michaels trailing behind. "Hi, Michael," I replied, my voice flatter than week-old soda. "This is Vanessa, my wife," he said, beaming like he was introducing me to a shiny new car. "And these are the twins, Bryson and Kyler." I forced a smile. "Nice to meet you all." As we sat down, I couldn't help but notice Vanessa's designer everything. Her purse probably cost more than my monthly rent. "So Olivia," Michael started, his voice dripping with fake sincerity, "I heard about Elena. I'm so sorry. She was a good woman." "Yeah, she was the best," I replied, stabbing my salad like it had wronged me. "Funny how you remember her now." Michael had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I know I made mistakes, sweetie, but I'm here now. We're family." "Family?" I scoffed. "Is that what you call it?" Vanessa chimed in, her voice nauseatingly sweet. "Olivia, your father's been through a lot too. We should focus on healing." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Michael cleared his throat, leaning in. "So, Elena's estate, has everything been settled smoothly?" And there it was, the real reason for this little family reunion. "It's been handled," I said curtly. The rest of lunch was a blur of awkward small talk and thinly veiled questions about my finances. The next day, it was Sarah's turn. She picked a ritzy country club. Of course she did. "Darling," she exclaimed, air kissing my cheeks. "This is Robert, my husband." Robert, a silver fox type in a tailored suit, shook my hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. Sarah's told me so much about you." "Funny, she hardly ever mentioned you to me," I quipped. Sarah's smile faltered for a second. "Well, let's sit, shall we? I've been dying to catch up." For the next hour, I was treated to a whirlwind tour of Sarah's charities, galas, and social connections. It was like listening to a Kardashian podcast on 2x speed. And then I said to the Duchess, "Darling, that tiara is simply to die for. Sarah giggled, taking a sip of her champagne. Fascinating, I muttered, glancing at the clock and wondering if I could fake a medical emergency to make my escape. Robert cleared his throat, looking over at me. You know, Olivia, times have been a bit tough lately. Some of my investments didn't pan out as expected. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. Sarah jumped in with a too bright smile. Nothing serious, of course. Just a little belt tightening. But you know, family is so important during times like these, don't you think? I excused myself shortly after, my head spinning with thoughts of their not-so-subtle hints. Back at work, I spilled everything to Zoe over coffee. They're totally after your money, Zoe said, her eyes wide with disbelief. You need to watch your back. You think? I sighed. What should I do? Zoe's eyes gleamed with a mischievous light. I know a guy, a private investigator. He could dig up some dirt on your folks. I hesitated, then nodded. Do it. For the next week, my phone lit up with messages from Michael and Sarah. Family dinner. Let's go shopping. We have so much to catch up on. I was ignoring yet another text when I overheard a conversation in the break room that made my blood run cold. Yeah, Martinez, the quiet one, right? Word is her grandma left her millions. I froze, my coffee mud halfway to my lips. How did they know about my inheritance? And if they knew, who else did? As I walked back to my desk, my phone pinged again. Another message from Sarah. Darling, we simply must discuss the family estate. It's what Alina would have wanted. I clenched my fists, a cold anger settling in my gut. These vultures thought they could swoop in and take what was mine. They had another thing coming. It was time to find out what skeletons were hiding in their designer closets. Jake, the private investigator Zoe had recommended, didn't waste any time. Within a week, he dropped a bombshell that made my head spin. Your dad's business? It's a house of cards, Jake said, sliding a file across my kitchen table. He's in deep with some nasty loan sharks. We're talking break your kneecaps kind of guys. I flipped through the pages, my stomach twisting. And my mom. Jake grimaced. Her husband, Robert, has been cooking the books at his company. They're one audit away from total bankruptcy. It was like a punch to the gut. I knew they were after my money, but this level of desperation was staggering. There's more, Jake continued. Someone's been poking around your work email, accessing files about your inheritance. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? How? Jake shrugged. Inside job, maybe. Any coworkers acting suspicious? My mind raced, recalling the break room gossip and the sudden interest from people who'd never given me the time of day before. It all started to make sense. I've got an idea, I set, a plan forming in my mind. Can you set up a meeting with a financial advisor? A fake one. Jake grinned. Now you're thinking. I know just the guy. The next day, I invited both Michael and Sarah to separate meetings with my financial advisor to discuss my inheritance. They both jumped at the chance like sharks smelling blood. When they arrived at the office, the looks on their faces were priceless. Michael turned pale, while Sarah's Botox forehead actually managed to wrinkle in surprise. What's going on here? Michael demanded. I smiled sweetly. Oh, I just thought we could all chat about my inheritance together. Isn't that what family does? For the next hour, I laid out everything Jake had uncovered. Michael's failing business, Sarah and Robert's embezzlement, and the hacking of my work email. With each revelation, they grew more desperate, turning on each other like rabid dogs. You told me you needed the money for the boys' college fund. Sarah shrieked at Michael. Oh, please, like you're any better, Michael shot back. Trying to frame your own daughter for corporate espionage. Michael shot back, and my jaw dropped. Sarah, at least have the decency to look ashamed. It wasn't supposed to go that far. We just needed access to your files, she stammered. I stood up, shaking with rage. Get out, both of you, and don't ever contact me again. As they left, tails between their legs, I caught a glimpse of Jake in the corner, giving me a thumbs up. The entire confrontation had been recorded. The fallout was swift and brutal. My coworker Tim from accounting confessed to being bribed by Sarah for information about my finances. A few days later, Michael showed up at my apartment with the twins, trying to guilt me into helping him. Think of your brothers, Olivia. They need you, he pleaded. I slammed the door in his face. They needed a father who stuck around, not a deadbeat chasing money. Sarah's attempt to frame me for corporate espionage was the last straw. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. We've got them by the balls, Zoe said as we pored over the evidence in my living room. Now we just need to squeeze. I nodded, cold determination settling over me. Let's end this once and for all. I wish I could say I felt bad about what I was about to do, but after everything they'd put me through, this was justice, pure and simple. First up, Robert's embezzlement. I made an anonymous tip to the SEC, and they swarmed his office faster than you can say insider trading. Sarah, darling, I'm afraid there's been a terrible mistake. I overheard Robert shouting into his phone outside the SEC building. The only mistake was thinking they could mess with me and get away with it. As for Michael, well, let's just say his loan shark buddies got an interesting update on his whereabouts. Last I heard, he was spotted boarding a bus to Mexico, looking over his shoulder every 5 seconds. But the piece de resistance, that recorded confession, I handed it over to my company's legal team, and suddenly, all those whispers about corporate espionage dried up real quick. Olivia, we owe you one apology, my boss said, looking sheepish. And a substantial raise if you're interested. I smiled, but my mind was already elsewhere. It was time for a change. Actually, I said, I think I'm ready for a new challenge. So was all in when I pitched her my idea, our own tech company. Girl, you're speaking my language. We used part of my inheritance to set up shop. But that wasn't all. Grandma Alina's house. I turned it into a shelter for kids who'd been abandoned or abused. It felt right, like she was still helping people even after she was gone. This place is going to change lives, Zoe said as we stood outside the newly renovated shelter. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. It already has. Standing by the window of my new office overlooking the San Francisco skyline, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The past was behind me. The future was mine for the taking. The story's over, but I've got a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed your parents' schemes or given them another chance? Family is complicated, right? Drop your thoughts in the comments.